Hello there, and welcome once again to the Pro Wrestling Post Podcast. I am your host with the most, Mark Blake, and across the pond is my co-host, my brother from another mother, Mark Madison. How are you doing, dude?
I am doing fine. Less most than you from the other coast, but yeah, I'm doing okay. And you?
Well, that's new.
Otherwise,
That's new. Oh, that wasn't
hey,
discussed.
no,
I like that.
no.
I like that.
Did you ever watch the show? It was in the '90s. Did you ever watch Cheers?
Yeah, it was on
Yes.
like in the background. I mean, I
Okay.
wasn't really a fan of it. I was more of a fan of Fraser
Okay.
that came out of that, but
Okay. So I will always kind of refer back to like Norm whenever he'd walk into the bar and they'd ask him how he's doing. It would always be something different, right? As he's approaching his end of the bar, I'm like, oh,
yeah.
hey Norm, what's up? Oh, this, like, so it's always something. That's kind of the inspiration for the intro. Dip into my not aging myself too much.
I don't recognize Norm from Cheers. I recognize Norm from Toy Story.
Yes.
He's Mr. Potato Head.
Yes.
Which Toy Story 5? Was that not?
Yeah.
No, it's not Norm. It was the other guy.
No,
it was Norm's
the
mate,
mailman.
wasn't it? The mailman, yeah.
Mailman.
Before everyone jumps onto Twitter and has a go at me, we're rolling it back. Rolling it back. Yeah. Sorry, but
What
anyway.
was his actual name? John Ratzenberger, but I just can't remember.
That's the one. Yeah. He was the mailman. Yeah.
To any of our friends that are in our age group or any listeners that are, please help us out. What was the name of the actual character? He was a mailman, but yeah.
Answers on a postcard, please, to Pro Wrestling Post Towers. That'd be good. I really laugh if someone's searching for Pro Wrestling Post Towers right now.
Oh my gosh. The P.O. Box.
That's your house, though, isn't it? Pro Wrestling Post Towers?
I think it may be.
Yeah, we're not putting that address out there. Hell no. No. So, we are back once again, as you may have seen from the title of this podcast this week. We are back once again with part 2 of our greatest factions or our favourite factions. I'm not sure what to call it, but it's faction related anyway. Factions or stables or groups or anything else. I don't know, but that's what we're on about today. Alliances. Very, very good. See, this is why you're here. In the archives, which you can find on the prowrestlingpost.com, there is the first episode of this where we spoke about, what did we speak about? It was WCW, NWA centric with a little dabble in ECW and WWE. Was that right?
Yeah, sounds about right.
So today we've specifically staying in the 90s, possibly one of the greatest times for pro wrestling, in my personal opinion. And we are talking about WWF/E faction. No, they weren't the E until 2000. So scratch that. They were WWF faction, stables, groups, alliances, boys clubs, whatever you want to call them. That's what we're talking about today. Our favourite ones. Following on from the last episode about this, shall I just hand it over to you and you just lead the show?
You could, or we could like run through together. It's totally fine. I'm good with it, with whichever. Right now, if anyone is looking in the archives, because Mr. Blake pulled it up and mentioned it, it would be episode 26. As we are recording now, episode 29. So just a few back, stream back, you'll find factions part 1, the WCW, early WWF, NWA edition.
Right. Okay. Let's talk factions. Let's talk groups. Let's talk stables. Specifically in the 90s, I have a few off the top of my head that I remember and particularly enjoyed. I'm sure you do too. And I'm going to let you go first. Let's see what we've got.
Okay. So when we look at some of the most popular stables, I mean, very specific ones will come to mind. But then there's ones that were more comical, ones that fell to the side a little bit. Ones didn't get things that were really cool, and I always wondered what could have been more with them. Like, so I think we talked in the WCW version about like how Raven's flock was new, neat, and trendy, and things like that. So if we're going off the cool kind of presentation essence, even though they were really short lived, the Brood, right? So there was Gangrel, Edge, and Christian when they first got started. We're looking at late '90s. So I guess when we look at this, it's more about what stuck out to us as opposed to the entire starting like from 1990 to 99.9. So that was a pretty cool group, even though they were really short lived. And then there was a new Brood where the Hardys ended up aligning with Gangrel. And as it all worked out, Edge and Christian ends up feuding with Matt and Jeff Hardy, and fans will remember the triple threat TLC matches between those two teams, along with the Dudley Boys. So it's pretty fun stuff. So fans that may not be familiar with the Brood's entrance, they would rise up from the ground, surrounded by a ring of fire, and with that ring of fire, Gangrel would lead them, and he's holding like a chalice, but with a kind of a dark red light that's kind of filling the arena. He would step onto a step and drink a sip of whatever was in the chalice. I guess you're led to believe it's blood because they're really going with this whole vampire motif. And he spits it out, something Anne Rice from Interview with a Vampire would probably have been proud of, because it really reflected the nature of vampires, and they were really becoming really cool. I guess if you look, that was around the time I think the Anne Rice novels were becoming really trendy and popular. And I know I have all of those books somewhere, and it was reflected, and it felt like the popularity kind of crossed over into wrestling too. So that was one group that kind of stood out for me. What were your thoughts? Because that group seemed to join another group, but what are your thoughts on that particular group?
I remember this group quite well. The entrance. Name me a better entrance ever. Absolutely even back in the late 90s, it was stunning. It was great. Nothing. It hadn't been done before. The ring of fire as they rose up. The visuals. Sometimes the camera angles were like low down and looking up, so you saw like the fire, and then literally rising up from the flames. So good, so good. Kevin Dunn gets a tick there before he started loving himself and started giving people epilepsy with 50 camera cuts a second. Themselves were amazing. I think they was only together about 3 or 4 months before they got folded into another group, which we'll talk about at some point. Yeah, I can't really remember much of or many of their matches as the Brood themselves. Obviously, they remembered for the entrance and quite possibly for their exits, because they quite literally gave their opponents a bloodbath in the middle of the ring, which was really close to like horror at the time.
Yeah.
I know it's like the Attitude Era, or the middle end of the Attitude Era at the time, and dousing I don't know how many gallons of thick red liquid on your opponents in the middle of the ring. That was always something to remember. Obviously, I'm a huge Edge fan and a Christian fan. One of the best tag teams of all time. But together with Gangrel, yeah, they really came into their own. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. Like I said, I don't remember many, if not any, of their matches, but I remember them joining the Ministry, because that was the infamous. Screw it, I'll say it. The infamous hanging from Hell in a Cell, wasn't it?
It was, with Big Boss Man. It's funny, when we had something up on the Facebook page talking about what's the most memorable moment, and I thought it was all tied. It was all like Undertaker per se, but they were keys in the actual, I guess lynching is the word, but tying and hanging of Boss Man. But I guess they were as much a part of that as anybody, right?
Yeah, well, kind of. I mean, they helped form it, and then they were kind of shown as the whipping boys. Because I mean, every week one of them was going to get a good kicking from the group, to show like loyalty and fealty to them. but yeah, that hanging. Let's try not to downplay that again. You know, if you thought the bloodbath was quite much for that time, seeing someone get hanged. Don't forget, this is a huge wrestling company, and yet ECW, when they did the crucifixion of was it Raven?
Sandman.
Sandman, sorry, but yeah.
But Raven was the Raven feud, yeah.
Yeah. So they got absolutely and rightfully condemned from everyone across the planet, so much so that Paul Heyman had to issue a very, very rare apology. Hanging a guy from a top of a cell, very, very, very close to being taken off the air, I would imagine. Luckily, it was a pay-per-view, so they got away with it slightly. But yeah, that hanging was turning point, I suppose. And then obviously that was the formation of the corporate ministry, which no, it wasn't the corporate ministry. I'm jumping ahead there, aren't I? The ministry.
No, it would still be the Ministry of Darkness. Yeah.
Yeah, the Ministry of Darkness, which I remember more, but only because of what happened with the Brood. So even though the Brood weren't that integral to the ministry, they ended up, to me, being more important.
Dark nature. It seemed like other characters were amalgamated. I mean, do we segue into talking about the Ministry of Darkness and who got involved? Yeah, okay.
I think it just sets itself up perfectly there.
Well, there you go. So we know that a few of the members, Edge, Christian, Gangrel, were part of that. We look at the acolytes of Bradshaw and Farouk joining and being part of. Now, this is prior to the APA, like their beer swinging ways, and they had those really bizarre like insignias drawn on their chest.
Yeah, that was strange.
I wasn't sure what those were supposed to represent. Maybe somebody could tell me. Maybe it's an M. Night Shyamalan film, like signs, like in the cornfields, where you would see that kind of somebody cut into the grass. They only drew that on their chest. Who else would be tied to that? I guess we're looking. You had Midian, and Viscera, and
before he became Naked Midian,
Naked, and after he was Phineas I Godwin.
Yeah.
So they repackaged him there, and then Viscera, who was Mabel from Men on a Mission, again a faction earlier in the 90s.
Way earlier,
way earlier. At least. What else can we say? Again, it was led by an injured Undertaker, which I think kept him on the air because he wasn't actively competing because he was hurt. So they evolved the Prince of Darkness type character, and it took that heel. It's hard to make the Undertaker a heel, but they really had to go dark as possible with him and really make him more of a talking point, right? Where he wears the long black cloak and the way his beard was cut.
I think that worked. That worked in the whole group's advantage because Taker could wrestle, or not wrestle as much as he wanted to. I think that helped the actual group even more because of he had to be shown on screen. So which better way than vignettes and promos? And if your leader is now on the shelf, a bit much like someone else we're going to talk about later, Bret Hart. But when Taker was on the shelf, so to speak, and he's surrounded by his group and he's cutting all these dark and ominous promos to Vince and anyone else that that they were feuding with, it helped the group. Yeah, I just thought that was really. I don't know if it was clever booking. I think it was the only booking they had that they could do at the time because they needed to get them across. So it just worked out really, really well for them.
So now can you think of anybody else we're missing that was part of that group?
That's it, isn't it? I can't think of anyone else.
Part of the Ministry, of Darkness specifically. Anybody else can mention, reaches out, let us know if we are missing anyone specifically. Feel free, reach us on our handles. I'll probably get a private message here and there. I'm like, no, share it publicly. It's okay. That's how we engage, friends.
I think the only one we didn't mention was Paul Bearer, but to be fair, that he goes hand in hand with Taker anyway. So
yeah.
I'm sure that's the only one. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. No. Okay. So they would merge as part now. Was the emergence part of the revealing of the higher power, or was that? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm cheating. I'm on Wiki. Not that it's much help.
See, and I'm going on old foggy memory.
Yeah, I'm way past that. You know, I struggle trying to remember what I did yesterday, let alone 25 plus years ago. So it says here that the merger of the corporation and the Ministry of Darkness, who united whilst facing common adversaries like Steve Austin, The Rock, the Union. Now there's a faction, and Mr. McMahon. In an infamous swerve, the latter was revealed as the power behind the corporate ministry who intended it to destroy Austin. It was me all along. Famous shots there. Talking of shots, there's one with a toy gun. Yeah, the corporate ministry, it kind of lost its way a little bit. Yeah, I kind of lost interest. There was so much. It got NWO-esque. So go back in the archives and you'll hear me moan about how the NWO being too big was part of its downfall. Putting two groups together, it bloated this supergroup faction, whatever you want to call it. It bloated it out, and in my eyes, it was too much. You didn't know what to concentrate on, what storyline, and yeah, I'd lost interest quite a lot. What about yourself?
Yeah, no, I'm with you too, because I mean, one minute they're hanging the big boss man, and the next, like, they're all aligned. Like, because the boss man was part of the corporation, along with Tests. I want to say Triple H was part of it too. Maybe I'm off on that slightly.
Yeah, because he was part of the corporation, wasn't he?
Yeah. But I'm not really sure the timeline, because, and maybe you can, because you've got Wiki with you.
Yeah.
Because there was the whole wedding that was interrupted by Triple H of Stephanie, but Stephanie was still kidnapped by The Undertaker. How does that timeline work? Because then Test and Triple H are on the same side. Or were they? Because he was part of the Union, which is another faction.
We've got to talk about the Union in a minute.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
We've just mentioned it twice now. It'd be painful not to. So, according to Wiki, and I can't remember this. I don't remember. But it says here, at Backlash 99, the ministry kidnapped Stephanie. Taker attempted to wed and sacrifice her the following night, but was ruined successfully by Steve Austin after two failed attempts by Ken Shamrock and the Big Show. Members of the corporation had wanted to help Stephanie, but Shane held them back, apparently trying to convince them that it could be a ministry trap. That's when I was like, nah, I'll tap out. This is getting a bit weird now.
Yeah.
Vince kidnapping his own daughter and Taker, trying to sacrifice her. Again, so we've got bloodbaths, we've got hanging, we've got sacrifices. This is all great stuff in the late 90s. It just got too much. Question, is this Vince Russo booking? It is, isn't it?
Well, I'm told that, so it's funny, as you're saying that, I'm thinking that, but I thought Vince McMahon was the buffer, but I'm wondering how much of that was buffered, because even in its presentation, it's still bizarre. To
be fair, knowing what we know now about the guy, I ain't surprised.
Yeah.
I ain't surprised at all. Yeah, so that's just to start you off, guys and girls. This is a crazy start to our chat about factions.
Yeah.
It could be downhill from here. We're going to talk about the Union next, so it probably will go downhill. But stick with it. It gets better. Oh, trust me, it gets better. So we mentioned them there, the Union. Let's talk about the Union. I laugh because even back then when they were formed, I just looked at them and went, yeah, all right, whatever you say. You're not very believable. What about you? What did you think to the Union? Go on.
Well, it's honestly, so if anybody is familiar, like Jesse the Body Ventura just recently came back to the WWE, and he showed up, and when they were in Minnesota, he was the one that was years ago wanting to spearhead a union for wrestlers. What a great way to have brought him in and make him some sort of a manager, because it would have been life imitating art, because, you know, who else would he have spearheaded? But Big Show, Ken Shamrock, Mick Foley, Cactus Jack, whomever, and Test were all part of this union. Was Big Show part of the ministry? Or was he part of the corporation at one point?
I think he was part of the corporation.
Yeah, probably with Ken Shamrock too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, they would walk around with 2x4s. Why Hacksaw Jim Duggan wasn't a part of it, I don't know. I mean, it's a homage where they would carry those things around.
He was in Team Canada, wasn't he? At the time, he was in Team Canada.
You're right. So he was in WCW. Maybe, I don't know, maybe were they mocking him by using 2x4s? I don't know. Was it a dig? Was it a dig by Vince?
Again, wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah, so it was, I couldn't say that I remember anything memorable other than them trying to fight the big fight or the greater fight against the powers that be, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's almost like taking what Vince and Steve Austin were having with their feud. I think that's why everybody knows, why did Steve Austin gravitate to everybody? Because he did what everybody else wants to do and beat up their boss that they don't get along with. I think this was an exaggeration of trying to, like, so what is this supposed to be? Are you filing legal grievance? Like, I don't get it, per se. Like, you know, I'm only working 9 to 5. I'm not, I don't know.
I bypass HR and just get the 2x4s out and go, come here, mate. We need a chat. That's what that is.
Yeah.
God, damn. Yeah, it's, again, I'm reading Wiki again, and I don't remember any of this. So it says here, the group formed on May 3rd, 1999, 4 days after the Ministry of Darkness and Shane's Corporation merged to create the corporate ministry. The 4 union members were not alone, as they feuded with the corporate ministry. Oh no, forget that bit. But apparently, Vince McMahon led the union into battle. I don't remember him being anywhere near the union, but
no.
The union was sometimes called, it's an acronym, Up Yours, or Union of People You Ought to Respect, son. I mean, come on, that's scraping the barrel. That's really so bad. I know they're trying to be like really edgy and, you know, Up Yours. No, I've never heard them called that. Never.
No, I'm with you.
Damn. I'm in a list of factions, stables. The union doesn't make the top 25, and that's including like Mick Foley, who I absolutely adore. He's my favorite wrestler of all time. It's just really, really bad. Really bad. Go jump on the network, boys and girls. Type in the union, see what you find. I guarantee you won't find hardly anything. They won't be highlighting that much. Anything else? Now we've just done the latter end of the 90s.
Let me scroll through if there's anything that kind of stands out. No, I think that wouldn't work because that was later. Just trying to look at something here. Well, in and around, this is all 98, probably 99, because this would be post. No, not necessarily. Okay, so G-Generation X and the Heart Foundation, do we scale back and take a step back a little bit, or what do you think?
I mean, you say DX, instantly my mind goes to Nation of Domination. Right. That's the feud that I think that's the one that's the best known. As soon as you say one name, that's the other thing that pops into your head. Like the NWO was formed against the entire WCW, DX and Nation, they were the feud, and then obviously you had the infamous DX Mickey taking where they cosplayed as the Nation, which really wouldn't fly today.
No.
You got that. The Heart Foundation, I personally would put before that in chronological order.
Okay.
Or would they? Do you know what? I don't know.
Well, you see, I think DX was like 96. Not sorry, it started. They were still going around 96, 97, but I would say the Nation was around 96 to 97. So I think there's like kind of weaved, but the earliest incarnation of Nation of Domination was a Farouk-led faction with Clarence Mason, and then he had an incarcerated or just released incarcerated Crush and Savio Vega and a whole bunch of other people. I think. Do you remember the tag team PG? Was it PG-13?
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah,
yeah. It was PG-13. Yeah.
yeah. So they were all. I think they were all part of that group, and so that group would be all aligned. But then from there, that would fragment. And we were talking a little bit off air into like a gang warfare. So Crush went off, formed a faction. Savio Vega left. He formed a faction. The Nation themselves became stronger with the guys that they had involved, The Rock and D'Lo Brown and
Mark Henry.
Yeah. And then it changed once. So Savio Vega's group, Los Boricuas, who would dress like almost like Cuban mobsters, or like they'd have white fedoras and wear white pants. I'm like, are they supposed to be threatening? Maybe because of what they represented symbolically. Maybe. I always wondered if DOA would have had more legs to them because they had that motorcycle persona, but I mean, it felt like that the energy of that group was carried on with the American Badass character of the Undertaker years later. But Brian Lee, who was the fake Undertaker, funny enough, plays a part in this group along with Ron and Don Harris, the twins, and Crush. So that was a group of 4 too.
Yeah, the DOA, as you said, they looked the part. They had everything going for them, and I think the reason why they didn't last that much longer was because of certain members of the group having Nazi persuasions, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, I know Vince likes to cut things close to the bone and over the top sometimes, but even back then, he must have gone, I'm sorry, guys, you're gone. Yeah, you've been. Was it nuts and was it KKK? And I don't know, not off the top of my head. And I don't really want to go searching for it because that could just land me in a whole heap of trouble.
Yeah,
DOA had quite a lot going for it, and it just went completely and utterly, as we say over here in the UK, tits up because of outside endeavours. Shall we say? I've just, as you was like talking just there, I was just thinking. Over here, there's like another saying, like you're sitting at a bus stop and you're waiting all day for a bus, and all of a sudden 5 turn up at once. That's what it was back then. You're sitting there waiting for a faction to turn up, and then all of a sudden all these factions turn up in the space of 18 months, and you don't know where you're looking and what to do and what to take notice of, and it's just popped into my head then, completely and utterly. Yep. Los Barricas, I don't remember much, if at all, of them. I know, obviously, Savio Vega. And, yeah.
They don't even show up on Wikipedia, which is funny.
Whoa, really?
I'm looking alphabetically under L. I mean, Lucha House Party shows up and they don't show up. I think that's...
Wow. Lucha House Party. Wow.
Yeah.
Bit of 205 live action there. That is strange. That is very strange. Who else did you mention? So they splintered off from there. So the Nation themselves. What did we talk about first? Was it DX or Nation?
Your call. You can do either.
Okay, let's go with
you
Nation.
Want to go? Yeah, that makes sense. Okay,
let's go Nation. Then we'll work backwards to DX. Then we'll work backwards to the Heart Foundation, which was also mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
The Nation had, as you quite rightly said, had quite a few roster changes. But the main one is obviously the one that you said. Could we add Owen Hart into that as well, please? Because Owen Hart was a revelation when he joined the Nation. He really was.
He
I
really
thought
was.
he was one of the best. I mean, obviously it's Owen Hart and everything he did was bloody gold anyway. But he really, from the fallout from the Hart Foundation and what happened there, and then joining the Nation, he kind of showed a different side of himself, and it was so good, so good. And in the ring as well, he picked up a lot more, like a lot more ruthless. He would brawl a lot more than wrestle, and I think that was because of the anger of the group itself, and he sort of manifested that in the ring. Again, my personal point of view, I could be completely utterly wrong, and I don't care because opinions are like what?
Assholes.
There we go. Oh man, I need to clip that. Oh, that's quality. I need to clip that. The Nation itself was great, and unbeknownst to, I think, the group at the time, was a vehicle for quite a few members to really become breakout stars. I mean, Mark Henry, he was already the world's strongest man, but being in the Nation gave him, what's the word I'm looking for? Like direction. Apart from being a bland world's strongest man, all this kind of stuff, he joined the Nation, become a badass. When the Nation disbanded, he kind of kept that badass attitude as well. So he could see a future for himself. And then obviously, you had Farouk, who left there and got into quite a few card games and bar fights with his best friend Bradshaw. And obviously you had The Rock, who literally took the wrestling world by storm, and then not long after that took the world by storm, and still continues to do so to a certain degree now. The Nation is, I think, forgotten about sometimes in how influential they really were.
Oh, for sure. Underrated in D'Lo Brown and his chest protector. He gets hurt, and yet he's wearing a chest protector. Looks something similar to like a baseball catcher who's like, what is it protecting you from, dude? But I mean, it's supposed to add more impact when he hits his frog splash. And then we see how the Godfather kind of emerged as part of the Nation, and that whole character that really got over, like really fans gravitated towards. It wasn't my cup of tea, but I can deny that others really were hooting and hollering for it, right?
Again, that's another gimmick that really wouldn't work this time.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't.
If you want to check that out, we're not going to talk about it. But if you want to check that out, you just search Godfather WWF and you just have a look for yourselves. Sorry.
No. We're not gonna elaborate on that. But and that was, and then that turned into that feud, and you talked about the parody Degeneration X. So Degeneration X is kind of, they feuded. They had an earlier incarnation, but this incarnation that came later was before, right? So we had that were actively in ring competitors in Triple H, X-Pac, Road Dogg Jesse James, and Badass Billy Gunn as Degeneration X, and then I guess the subgroup being the New Age Outlaws within that group. And they would feud and they would parody, and it was a total gang warfare too. But those two factions, I mean, yes, they all had their degrees of success, but it's crazy because you could see two guys being elevated through the mid card and upper mid card, and then to the main event. It's like they gravitated together, battling over the IC title and then world titles, and it's Triple H and The Rock, right? So crazy to see that, and as a fan, you're like, these guys are going to be the future. Like, you could really see how much stock they're putting into both of them.
Which, as we said last week in the SummerSlam Fallout, we were talking about Braun and how him capturing the IC title, we see a really big future for the guy. This is exactly the same thing 26 years ago, where the two leaders of these groups were changing the industry at the time, changing the perception that people saw of them as well. And us fans at home are going, as Mark just said, these two are going to be absolute stars and going to lead like wrestling into the future, which they did. So, yeah, the battle for the IC title, back in the day made it's classed as the workers' title. Not so much now, although after Gunther/Walter, it's gained its prestige again. So the battling over the IC title could and should make you a better wrestler and a better personality, and it certainly did back then.
Agreed.
The X itself, which version did you prefer? The 3/4 with Rude, or the later one?
I think there was more comedy. Like there was more of a leaning on comedy. The later incarnation, the earlier one felt more trying to push the envelope and just be shocking, because I think they were going head to head with the NWO and WCW, and I think it was shot in not a really good state, and so it was a bone of contention for me, just because I didn't like how the whole thing ended up in reality. So I always wondered if there could have been more members in that earlier version, because it felt like who else could have competed or worked alongside, where it felt the latter group, they all worked together. They were almost, no personality was bigger, but it almost felt like, yes, Shawn was the bigger personality and then Triple H, whereas Rick Rude would say nothing and China would say nothing, is just standing as muscle. So
I like that though. That showed the hierarchy of the group.
Yeah, I like that.
It carried on with like the next version of DX, and you'll see in a lot of stables that same kind of hierarchy. You'll have your main guy, you'll have your mid card guy. You could have a tag team or thereabouts, and then you've got your lower guy. So X-Pac would be kind of like the lower guy. You had your New Age Outlaws as your tag team, and you had Triple H as like your leader of the group. And I think that was the foundation, so to speak, of what they were trying to do as Vince in that respect going forward. That's how he wanted his stables to look. I mean, the NWO did it, but again, with the over bloated roster, you got lost.
You got lost.
Who was who?
Yeah. Do you like more the hierarchy of the first version, or did you like?
Oh yeah.
So yes, why? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
it was distinctively different.
Oh yeah. I mean, they had to have, the WWF at the time needed some kind of rival to the NWO, and with the curtain call and all that kind of things, and half the curtain call is now in WCW and blowing up all across the world. That camaraderie between Triple H and Shawn, there was obviously something there, and they just went. I think Legend says that Vince went, he gave them like 5 minutes in the ring and said, right, go for it, and that's how it happened. So the backstage they brought to the front of stage. Did they need Rick Rude? I don't know. Shawn was big enough; he didn't really need Rude as a name, and it's just a bit strange. And then obviously, Rick had the what's the word? The history making moment where he appeared on 2 wrestling programs at the same time.
3 actually, because apparently he was in ECW, I think, on the Wednesday of that week.
Yeah, that's right.
That was nuts.
So he was on Raw, which was taped, and then he was on WCW Nitro, which is obviously live, on the Monday night, and then 2 nights later he was in ECW, which I think was running about 4 weeks behind. So
it's funny.
That's crazy. That's really good, really really good. Yeah, but I preferred the original version. It was my kind of humor. My kind of humor is like, for all you old farts out there like myself, Airplane and Naked Gun and all that kind of stuff. So when it was in the ring and they're talking to Slaughter and they've got those visors on with the window wipers, that I found that incredibly hilarious. I'm such a child. I'm sorry. So yeah, I gravitated towards them instantly.
So so again, their biggest rival earlier on was the Hart Foundation. But on a body by body matchup, I mean, clearly the Harts outnumber them.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
5-3 kind of thing, right? But it never felt like they were there, but definitely everybody outside of Brett was a supporting cast. It never felt like a true threat. It felt like
I don't know.
did it? I don't know. Did
I
you
think,
like?
I mean, that's weird. You saying that, being like a Canadian, and at the time, like the whole point of the Heart Foundation was like pro Canada. So
Right.
I can see your point that Brett is like head and shoulders the star. But if you think about it, Jim Neidhart was his tag team partner. I'm trying to think, what, 10 years before?
Yeah.
So I not that I saw Jim as an equal, but I could still see in the hierarchy of things as Jim being that mid card guy. Then you had
Right.
Bulldog, who was again the mid card guy. No matter how many times I tried to push him for the title, and his demons kind of stopped him from doing that.
Yeah.
And then you had Owen, and even though Owen, in my personal, again, I'm going to get blasted. In my personal opinion, I think Owen was the better wrestler than Brett. It's the little things. Go back into the archives to understand what that means. Owen was like on the lower end of the hierarchy. And then if you want to go a bit further down the line, you had Brian Pillman, who who was an enigma himself because you didn't know where the hell he fit in the group because he was off his bloody face. Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, not in real life, but the character he played, he was just completely crazy.
Yep.
I loved the Heart Foundation, obviously, because they were anti-American. And even though I was a huge Austin fan at the time and that's who they were feuding with, I still love the Heart Foundation. Just found that a bit strange for you to say. That's all.
Yeah, no, because I'm trying to look promo wise. Who did you? Because it almost felt like yes, there's a straight line between Sean and Brett's, and then Triple H's clearly is the second, right? But
Hmm?
I struggle to see because I thought that there was more of this push for for Bulldog and Owen to be a team per se, but maybe I'm missing something in my sketchy old foggy memory
They
because
were.
then
Go on, sorry.
because then I look at Pillman as being on the lesser because he's not actively competing the way he was.
Mm-hmm.
He's hurt. He's like is what purpose that like yes there is a connection but he can't actively compete like he did before. Jim is
Well,
now 10 years removed from that, from where he was when they were a team. I don't know.
I don't. Mm, I don't know. You could say the same thing for when Austin went to ECW. You know, Austin didn't really do anything there, but he's remembered
No.
for his promos.
Yeah.
Those amazing promos, by the way, where he was just let loose. I think you could class Brian Pillman in that regard with his run
Okay.
here with Art Foundation.
Okay.
He couldn't do much because he was hurt. So what can we do? You know, what can he do? Oh, he's a complete crazy lunatic. Let's just we'll just stick him in the ring and acts like a lunatic. You crack on. So he did that to possibly the best of his ability and more. Who else was there? So you had Owen and Bulldog, who were a great tag team. And towards the end, I don't know if you remember this, but towards the end of their run together, they were playing the one up game. They were trying to one up each other all the time,
Yeah. Yep.
which I found so good. That story between the two of them towards the end of that run was so good, really, really good. And the Slammy awards and everything.
Mhm.
I've never looked at Slammy's the same after that. So after Owen, and then you had Jim, who, again, looking in the hierarchy of things, should be the second along with Triple H, but it just didn't work out like that. Jim doesn't have that same aura that Triple H has. So that's, to me, was the weak link.
It's interesting to see that they came together here because years earlier, I want to say maybe 3 years earlier, led by Jim Cornette and Mr. Fuji, we had Yokozuna along with Owen Hart and the British Bulldog.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they were aligned there too. And then they segued off, and as time passed, they were aligned once again as family, right? Though they were family before, and Bret had feuded with Davey Boy then, and then he comes and he's like, no, you need to stop fighting, we're family. And then this was the reforming of the Hart Foundation with those really cool jackets. I really wish I could have gotten one. Each one of those leather jackets that had their names on the back.
Oh, that was so cool. I totally, back then and now, I could not pull that off. But man, they'd make a killing if they put them on Euroshop now. Or
for sure.
But yeah, that was so cool. Was you ever tempted to buy like a cheap, crappy leather jacket and just do it yourself with some pink paint?
Maybe. I always wish I could have bought a Bret Hart Calgary Hitman jersey when he was owners of that the junior hockey team.
Yeah, I've seen pictures on Google and stuff of those jerseys, and for a while there were some jerseys on sale on eBay, but they were going for like £199, and I was like, I can't afford that. I can't justify that. The wife will kill me. Not for the first time. There is one day, folks. I'll tell you the story about how I got my WWE spinner belt.
Oh wow! Yeah. Okay.
It's I don't think Mark even knows this story, so I'll tell you that at a later date. But yeah, the Hart Foundation were cool. DX were cool. It was just a whole combination of greatness that happened. To me, that was the turning point with the war between WCW and WWF. It was this feud.
A couple of factions that, oh my gosh, I just looked at them and just like, I completely had forgotten about them and even their relevance. I think in our WCW version, we talked about the goofy nature of the Dungeon of Doom. Well, what about the Oddities? Do you remember that?
Oh my word! I do remember the Oddities. That was wow. I'm going to have to go searching for this now. That was mad. That was was it? Gargon? The really tall Brazilian guy. Kurgan. That's the one.
Well, there was
Did he have that weird bodysuit?
I believe so. Yes.
Oh, man, that freaked me out when I was a kid. That was I wasn't a kid. I was a young adult, with the mind of a child. But yeah, that freaked me out. Really did. Here we go. Who we got here?
A very young Don Callis with long flowing hair.
Oh, he was I'm just looking now. He was the Jackal.
He was.
The Jackal.
Giant Silva was John Tenta under a mask. No, that was Golga. Never mind. Golga was under a mask. That was John Tenta. Yeah. Where they were trying to make it seem as though he had a deformity from a mask. Well, and that's why he was wearing a mask. And so I don't know if there was like bumps on the top of his head. It's so hard to tell. I really couldn't tell. But they started off as heels, but being as like kind of a Quasimodo Hunchback of Notre Dame, they become beloved for their differences. Yeah. So, and then Luna Vachon is part of that group. And then you had the Insane Clown Posse.
Hold on. Sable was in the Oddities.
Yeah, very, very short time, but yeah, she was part of it.
Sable, possibly one of the most gorgeous women in the world, doing wow, that's and then I'm just looking down the bottom. George the Animal Steel. That's good booking there. That's good booking.
Yep.
But Sable, that's weird, man.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't remember
So how
that.
did they? So they said August 3rd, '98. They were reintroduced as babyface by Sable, who was a former enemy of the Shawn, who discovered their fun-loving side made them feel happy in spite of their freakish appearances.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
Golga had like a Cartman from South Park look to him. You watched South Park, yeah, and
oh,
yeah,
there's so many jokes there. Respect my
yeah,
authority. Oh, wow. Yeah, oddities. That's very, man, that's just unlocked a whole lot of memories that I completely forgot about.
yeah.
Wow. What about you guys out there? Have you got any memories from the 90s? Any groups you can remember that we haven't spoken about just yet? I mean, there's quite a few. Where let me have a look. There was no, that's not it. I was going to say something. We're going to have to hold that one. Ah, yes. What about this one with the most annoying theme music I've ever heard, apart from oh my god, apart from someone's I can't think of right now, but Right to Censor.
Yes.
Oh my word!
It's
That
funny. They
when
were the other group I had in the back of my mind. I'm like, let's get to them. But yeah,
yeah, Right to Censor. They were awesome, awesome. Stephen Richards, not Stevie, Stephen.
no,
Oh wow, so
the
they were
good
really
father.
good. The good good father, and Ivory. Oh my god, when Ivory with her hair tied back and she looked all
Yeah.
like school mistressy. Oh wow, that was a look. Their promos were great. I had what was I doing? I had an idea for an article when I was still writing, and I had these amazing thoughts in my head before I got old and forget these thoughts as quick as they turn up. But I had this idea of imagine the feud between Right to Censor and CM Punk back in the day. CM Punk.
Okay.
Yeah, that would have been amazing. But yeah, Right to Censor. God, they were so good. They were I know technically it's 2000, but it crossed over into the late 99. Yeah,
Yeah.
they were really good. They came along because of going back to the beginning of this episode. The line had been crossed more than once with WWF and Vince with strange storylines and over the top activities like hanging and bloodbaths, etc., etc. So in real life, there's some kind of group in America. Let me search for them. Some kind of group in America were basically saying to Vince, "You need to pack this." There it is. Parents Television Council, the PTC.
Yeah.
So they were basically saying, "You can't do this anymore. You've got to tone it down." So Vince, being Vince, was like, okay, we'll tone it down. And a few nights later, Right to Censor (RTC)
Hmm.
came about, and it's history after that. Vince doesn't really bow down to many people, as again the history has shown us. So yeah, he was like, "This was a big fu to you, and I'm going to carry on do what we're doing, and just doing it even more."
Yep.
Wow, that was good. Who else? Who else we got? Have you got any more?
Uh, I had thought of one, or I'd seen one, and then it escaped my mind. So I might have to go back to it. I have to go back thinking.
That's right. You go back to thinking. I'll screw it. I'll do the belt story. So about 10 years ago, my wingman was 2. So I was working part time. So I work in the evenings and I look after him during the day while the wife went to work. I was scrolling on eBay and I found a WWE spinner belt. It's got the John Cena nameplate, but that's not what got me got me excited. It was £95. And I was like, oh my God,
Wow.
this is amazing. I need to get this. I need to get this. So so I bought this belt on eBay just like that. It turned up a few days later, and again, the wife wasn't home. I hadn't told the wife this by this point. The wife wasn't home. I took the belt and went upstairs and hid it and all these kind of things. And I was thinking, what the hell am I going to do? How am I going to have this on the show if I haven't told her yet? What do I do? Where do I tell her? And I had this brainwave of an idea. I was like, I know she's going to go absolutely ballistic at me. We don't need a WWE spinner belt. Well, I do, but I see your point. So I was thinking to myself, where can I tell her where she won't kick off? So we went out grocery shopping the very next day. And whilst we were grocery shopping in this great big superstore, a Tesco's over here, I kind of told her what I'd bought, and she did not kick off. But if looks could kill, I would have dropped down dead there and then. She didn't talk to me for days. It was rough at the time, but I had this beautiful spinner belt, and I also bought a little hanger that goes with it. So I drilled 2 holes in the wall and put the hanger up, and my spinner belt was on the wall. Unfortunately, I kind of put it above our bedroom, above our bed, in our bedroom, above the headboard. So that's something else that she didn't find great, but I thought it was amazing. Anyway, have you found any more?
Yes, a couple that I remember back in the day, lesser known factions, but as soon as I mention their names, you'll remember them. So Kai and Tai.
Kai and Tai. I sent you a gift the other day, didn't I?
Yes, you did. Indeed, Mr. Funaki.
Choppy.
Fans unaware, there was a feud at one point. Val Venus, who's not somebody who's quite favorable now, but at the time, was playing the porn star character and threats of having a relationship with Mr. Yamaguchi-san's wife, who was the leader, or who was the, I guess, manager of Kai and Tai. They capture him, and the threat was to chop off his penis. So part of the
choppy pee.
Yes. So I think that was the most memorable moment the faction had as a group. I mean, I think I think the intention was they would have kind of springboarded into a light heavyweight division with a lot of the talent, but also the Job Squad, which was a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
No, not so much.
I wasn't a fan of the Job Squad.
No,
I wasn't. I'm still not a fan of Al Snow, so it kind of put me off. I mean, there's me literally 20 minutes ago saying, "Oh, my favorite kind of humor is that completely wacky one," and yet a guy with a mannequin head, and I'm like, "Nah, I'm sorry, I don't find that funny." So yeah, I couldn't get behind him, so I dismissed Job Squad pretty much the moment it was born.
No worries. So I think as far as like most notable that kind of stood out, whether we like them or not, I mean, they were focal points at some point. They had storylines. It was inundated. It felt like there were tons of factions on both sides, whether it be WCW or WWE at that time. It's almost like running the gamut. Some groups that were tag teams, you could easily say that they were factions. We can go with Demolition, that early, like 1990, were a group of 3, right? That still would fall under the 90s, because if you've got Crush and Axe and Smash, well, are they really a tag team, or does that fall under the times of the Freebirds? Is it a different rule?
Freebird rule. Freebird rule, baby. It's all about the Freebird rule.
There you go. And so those were pretty notable names that kind of stood out as far as groups and alliances around the time too. So this one is a little odd because I remember it because it involved Jim Cornette. It was really shortly done. It was where they took his Smoky Mountain group, or made him a National Wrestling Alliance faction, and it included a new Midnight Express. So, do you remember this bombastic Bob and Bodacious Bart as part of his new Midnight Express?
Yeah, I remember them.
Yeah, and then he did bring in the Rock and Roll Express. It was part of it. Jeff Jarrett was part of it. Dan Severn, who was the NWA champion, world heavyweight
Right.
champion at the time. So yeah, they were. But like it was, I know that there was animosity between Jeff Jarrett and Steve Austin, and I think his time there kind of got kiboshed too. And then shortly after, he ends up in WCW. So
Have we mentioned the $1 Million Corporation?
No, we haven't.
No,
We
I
haven't.
just, as we were talking about the corporation earlier, I was like, oh, did we mention or not? The $1 Million Corporation. Now, for me, 94 to early 96, I got to that age where, I'm too old to watch this. This is child stuff anymore. So I kind of stopped watching, and regrettably, I don't know much about $1 Million Corporation apart from what I've seen on the network and things like that. But I know, according to this, there was quite a big ass group here. You've got $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, and he had Nikolai Volkov, Bam Bam Bigelow, Tatanka, Erwin R. Shyster, Karma, and King Kong Bundy in his group. That's insane. I mean,
It's a massive group of guys.
Why wasn't that going roughshod over the entire federation and picking up all the belts?
They were the focus couldn't have. I think it was more so on guys like Tatanka, maybe Sid, 1-2-3 Kid, whereas everybody else was in their latter stages. See, I don't think Bigelow stuck around as long.
No, that makes sense because he would have jumped to ECW pretty soon after this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think there was animosity towards King Kong Bundy. I've read stories of him being with the company, and then when he left, he had an opportunity to make some money for something else. Vince is begrudging towards that.
How dare you make money outside?
Exactly. It was a real departure for to see Nikolai Volkov walk around with a penny symbol on his back, which is less than $1. So I don't know. Some of the stuff almost seemed embarrassing to what these guys were and how big they were. And Ted DiBiase's Undertaker, again, that was actually Brian Lee.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think some of them had like one moment. Like I remember Steve Austin as the ringmaster, but I don't know if it was part of a whole corporation. Was he? Or was he just, I don't know.
I think that was on its last legs. Didn't he join literally not long before it disbanded, and then he stayed with Ted, and then eventually morphed into one of the biggest names the industry's ever seen.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Santa Claus. Do you remember that? That was very short lived. That was
what? What is that? Is that some kind of special bill for special things?
So they wanted. So Santa Claus was actually Balls Mahoney. He ended up becoming Balls Mahoney in ECW. Santa Claus, yeah. So Santa Claus was an attempt of making Santa Claus bad, and that he would attack, and he came very short-lived. I only think he had a couple of appearances and something like that. But to say somebody's part of a corporation when he shows up a couple times, I don't know. And it was just around the holidays at some point.
Special appearance by Santa Claus.
Yeah, so bizarre.
I wonder what he was chucking out towards the kids that day. Anyway, I think we've kind of run the gambit now.
I think we have.
Running empty here. If you out there have got any favourite tags or stables, anything like that we've missed, let us know. We will always come back and revisit this again. I think are we doing a third part of this? We're doing the 2000s?
We're going to have to do, it would be unfair to, as you would say, the millions to cut them short and not make them aware of things that, do we just stay WWE? Do we talk Ring of Honor? Do we go TNA? I mean,
we'll expand it. We're going to do open season. So all the way from 2000 to December 31st, 2009, any company, do you know what? I'll tell you what, again, this is how off the cuff this show is, folks. Between the next time that we do this, we're going to do some research between the pair of us. and we're going to try and find the most obscure factions and teams, whatever else that we can, and try and bamboozle each other. How about that?
Oh, I like that. I like that.
Excellent.
So I'm definitely I'm gonna really dig into some TNA stuff. I'm like, do you remember this group? Do you remember?
That's all right. I'll go bring.
Do you remember X Factor?
Oh my word, yeah, I do. Oh no,
there you go. Oh, there you go.
Oh, bad memories. I might need some Xanta. So yeah, like I said, if we've forgotten anything or anyone, any groups, let us know in the comments. Hit us on the DMs. We'll obviously share our stuff in a moment or two. Again, this has been a lovely trip down memory lane. As you already know, I don't prep. I used to prep. I don't prep anymore. And now I'm just like, we'll just wing it. We'll just go by the seat of our pants. Because the whole premise of this pod is that we're just two guys that just chat. And as long as we've got a subject to start with, we just go off on as many tangents as we possibly can. Mark is the guy, as you probably might have known from his answers, they're a lot more structured than mine. Mark has a better idea of preparing for this, whereas my idea of preparing for this was having a quick drink, having a quick bite to eat, and then checking the time and going, oh, it's time to record. So there we go. But again, yeah, dude, thank you. This has been great. A lovely trip down memory lane, and I can't wait for part 3. We're going to have to do a part 4 as well, aren't we? Because if we're doing the 2000s,
we may have to. Yeah.
We
may have
okay.
To.
All right. This could series.
What was the beverage of choice? Because we're talking. We never talked about our beverages. We haven't talked about what we're drinking forever.
I'm sort of running behind schedule a lot today, so I didn't get a chance to go down to the Costa to get my latte. Iced latte. So I had one of those home ones with the powders that you do at home. It's not that great. Not that great. Not gonna lie. No, although it did start off really nice because I made it home in the blender and whizzed it up, and it's really thick and creamy and nice. And okay, this is not bad. And then with about 10 minutes of it settling, it didn't taste that good. It was supposed to be salted caramel. I couldn't taste anything at all. So there we go. I shall be posting my reports of the Kenko Coffee Instant Cold Latte Salted Caramel Edition pretty soon on sites around the world. I don't know. I just got lost on that one. So yeah, we will be back with another Factions episode in the near future. Next week is a biggie. It is, personally, it's a huge episode. Next week is the go home week of AEW before they have their biggest show of the year at Wembley Stadium. I may have mentioned this a couple of times. I'm going to be there as I wasn't there last year, as I was kind of somewhere else last year, which I may have mentioned before. So this year, I'm super looking forward to it. I'm taking the wife, I'm taking the wingman, and we are going to be previewing that very show next week. There could even be, if he plays along, there could even be an appearance by my wingman. Watch this space. Mark, what is your socials?
You can reach me at the Mark Madison on the Twitter Xbox machine thingy. And you can also reach our Pro Wrestling Post Twitter X handle at Pro Wrestling PST, Instagram at Pro Wrestling Post, and also you can reach us by searching us up on Facebook. Look up Pro Wrestling Post, look up our page. You will find us posting everything from pictures to commemorative pieces to episodes of our pod that generally will air between Friday and Sunday. You'll click through the link and you'll navigate through your favorite podcast provider. You can find us there. Yeah, that's it.
Excellent. I'm up next. I'm on the Twitter at the Mark Blake, all one word. I'm just scrolling through my timeline now. I haven't really posted much, to be fair. So I will change that soon, very, very soon, with just random wrestling stuff and maybe shilling of the pod and my charity stream, gaming stream, is in a few weeks. I will shield that as well. I'll let you all know more about that next week. On the Instagram, I am the _Mark_Blake. Again, I'm not really doing much on there. I need to pull my finger out and up my social game, I think, or social media game. Not my social game. The wife might have a go at me. Yeah, that's that. As you can tell, I'm not the greatest self-promoter, but I will endeavour to change that. Right. Again, thank you very much, dude. It's been a pleasure as always. Can't wait for the next part of the Factions episode, and I really can't wait for next week, especially if I can get the wingman to talk. And you can hear the opinions of a 12-and-a-half-year-old. Well, nearly a 13-year-old. Oh my God, nearly 13.
Yeah. Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
Yeah. Oh dear. That could be fun. And hopefully I will keep the filter on as well. So there'll be no more swear words, little ears and all that. So until next week, with that very special episode, thank you very much for listening. Like, subscribe, all that kind of malarkey. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Adios. Bye.